Here we have an equation that includes a rational exponent. The exponent is 2/3, so it looks like a ratio, like a fraction. And so it's called a rational exponent. And so when we're solving rational exponents, here we have x minus 4 raised to the 2/3 equals 16. Well, it helps to first remember what that rational exponent represents, what it signifies. So remember, the top number tells us the power that we're raising our expression to, and the bottom number tells us the root that we're taking. So this is saying that we have x minus 4, and we're raising it to the second power, and we're taking the cube root of that, and the result is 16. And so in order to find out what x is, we have to work backwards. We have to undo what has been done to the equation. So we undo the power, the square root, the squared power by using a square root. And then the root, the cube root that we're taking, we undo a cube root by cubing the equation. So in order to undo the 2 on top, the square, we have to take a square root. And in order to undo the cube on bottom, the root, we have to cube it, raise it to the 3rd power. And so basically we have to take what we have here, and we have to undo the cube root by raising it to the 3rd power. We have to undo the squared power by taking the square root. And so we're basically raising the entire left side to the 3/2 power, which notice is the reciprocal of the 2/3, which would cancel it out. 2/3 times 3/2 would give you 1. Anything to the 1st power is just itself. So we know that that's going to help us solve. It's going to help us undo that rational exponent by raising it to the reciprocal power. And again, whatever we do on the left side of the equation, we also have to do on the right side of the equation to keep ourselves legal. So we're going to raise both sides of the equation to the reciprocal of 2/3. So we're raising both sides of the equation to the 3/2. Again, notice 2/3 times 3/2, that gives us 1. So that goes away, and we're left with just x minus 4 on the left. Notice what we have on the right. We have 16 to the 3rd power, and then we're taking the square root of that. Or you can do it the other way and take the square root first, and then raise that to the 3rd power. Doesn't matter what order, as long as you do both. And so it's easier to take the square root first, because we can easily see that the square root of 16 is plus and minus 4. Remember, anytime you take a square root, you get a positive and a negative result. So we get the square root of 16, and then we'll raise that to the 3rd power. And then again, the square root of 16 is plus or minus 4, and we're going to raise both of those to the 3rd power. And so notice we're going to end up with x minus 4 is equal to plus or minus 64. 4 to the 3rd power is 64. Negative 4 to the 3rd power is also negative 64. So you can put this in your calculator. You can put 16 and then raise that to the 3/2 power. Make sure that the 3/2 is either in the exponent position in your calculator, or you have parentheses around it if your calculator doesn't have an exponent, doesn't show it in an exponent position. But your calculator will return the answer 64. You have to remember that because what's on bottom here is an even number, that's an even root that you're taking. And anytime you take an even root, you end up with the 2 answers, a plus and a minus. You have to remember that if you just put it in your calculator, because your calculator only returns the positive answer. You have to remember that there is also a negative answer. So however you do it, you end up with x minus 4 is equal to plus or minus 64. So we have x minus 4 equal to 2 different things. I'm going to break it into 2 different problems. I have x minus 4 is equal to 64, and I have x minus 4 is equal to negative 64. Solving both of those, we're going to add 4 to both sides of the equation. We end up with x is equal to 68. And here, when I add 4 to both sides, I end up with x is equal to negative 60. Now, it's a good idea anytime you have an equation to double check and make sure that you got the right answer, especially with equations that are not linear, equations that don't look normal. So here we have a rational exponent. It's probably a good idea just to check and make sure both of our answers work. And so to do that, we're going to plug them back in. So notice here, when we're checking 68, we're going to plug it in. And so we have 68 minus 4 raised to the 2/3. We want to know, does that equal to 16? Well, 68 minus 4 is 64. 64 raised to the 2/3. 64 cube root of 64 is 4. 4 squared is 16. So we do get that one to work out. So 68 is one of our answers. We need to check the negative 60 as well. When we plug in negative 60 minus 4, raise that to the 2/3, we want to know, does that equal to 16? So inside here, negative 60 minus 4 gives us a negative 64. The cube root of negative 64 is negative 4. And when we square a negative 4, we do get a positive 16. So yes, that one works as well. And so we end up with 2 answers. So notice over here, it says to select the correct choice. Well, we know that the solution set isn't empty because we just found 2 things in it. And so we're going to select choice A. And then in the box, we're going to simplify our answers, use a comma to separate as needed. Well, we got 2 answers. They're both simplified already. So we're going to enter 68. And then we're going to use a comma. And then we're going to put in the negative 60.